3, 2, 1. Welcome back to episode 54. 54 of the Have We Made It Yet podcast. It is the podcast where two creatives talk about the process of making it. And sometimes, if they are lucky enough, we also get guests. I know you probably can't see because we kind of switched the formatting of this podcast, but there is a third panel, which you will see. There will be a third person in this podcast today. Like I am always, I am joined by the amazing co-host right there. Introduce yourself, my man.
I am Josh Yang, comedian, podcaster. I don't know why I sound like I'm being put on the spot, but we've done this for forever now, it seems. But yes, Josh Yang, co-host, comedian, and very happy to be here. Thank you, Lucas, for continuingly to be my co-host. And yeah, that's me.
Yeah, we're done this 54 times plus. And I am Lucas Ng, the actor portion of this podcast. And as we start with every episode, though, Josh, I know you do have some big news. I don't want to put you on the spot again, but as we start off with every episode, Mr. Josh Yang, have you made it yet?
I mean, you should put me on the spot, because if we're not on the spot right now, then why are we here? But basically, no, I haven't. But you know what? It feels closer, because finally, after a year and 3 months, my comedy set that I filmed at the CBC Glen Gould Theater is being released. Or sorry, is not the correct tense. It is out there. It is out there now. So you know what, everybody listening, go and take a look at my Fresh Rice comedy set. It's called Josh Yang is the Voice of the Modern Asian Family. And it's 6 minutes and 45 seconds of pure Josh monotone glory. So it's finally out there. It looks beautiful. I'm super happy to be able to share it with everybody. So yeah, after you listen to this, go take a look at that. And that's making me feel like I'm 1 inch closer. I'm 1 foot closer to making it, Lucas. And yeah. There was actually another weird situation. Not weird, but I was put in a little awkward situation, like as part of the PR for the Fresh Rice Comedy Showcase. We actually got a interview request from Omni TV for their Focus Mandarin like nightly news segment. So one of their reporters interviewed me, Vong Shou, and then another Cantonese speaking comedian, Tim Wong, I believe.
Nice.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So basically, so we were interviewed, and I was interviewed in Mandarin, which was a stretch for me, because I'm not the best at Mandarin. I think my Mandarin is just the max is like I stumble through it when I speak with my parents, but I had to be put on the spot here and speak Mandarin for most of it. I still haven't watched it, but it was pretty nerve-wracking to have to do an interview. My first essentially TV interview in Mandarin, which is I guess another step. It's another step to making it per se. But yeah, it's been a whirlwind of 48 hours that it's happened. But yeah.
Did everyone have to get interviewed in their, like, I guess, native language?
Not necessarily, but like we did try to put as many opportunities out there. So there were a couple Filipino interviews that were done by the Filipino performers. And I think they might have spoken Tagalog.
Oh, cool.
But Tagalog, I think that's the better pronunciation, Tagalog. And then we had, one of our performers, Anto Chan, did a French interview. So it was kind of like we tried to put as many opportunities out there. And stupid me, I put in I can speak Mandarin, but really I put in there's like can speak a little bit, not that great, can only speak to parents. But then it just ends up being it's like, okay, great. Now you just have to do an interview with a Mandarin reporter. And it was kind of embarrassing because throughout it, I had to stop my answers because I was thinking of what the terms were. And then the reporter had to and then I said it in English, and then the reporter gave me the Mandarin terms back to me, and then I repeated my answer using those Mandarin terms. So it was really a collaborative process.
Oh, thank God it wasn't live then.
No, it wasn't. It was pre-taped. Oh Jesus!
Oh,
if it was live, that would have been. I think I would have just sunk right into my chair off screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, so a lot has happened considering for the last like 6 months, nothing has really been happening. So happy to share that.
Awesome.
But finally, enough about me. Hey, Lucas, have you made it yet?
No. And the reason, oh man, I mean, there's no reason. So I'm following this other person. Oh, actually, our previous guest, Janice Mendez, had a great post that was basically talking about like taking control of your acting career, and really, you know, taking initiative. So based on her advice, I'm having like monthly check-ins with my agent. Before, I used to just be like, you know, the agent's busy. They probably don't have time for me. So I'd always be like too afraid to ask for things and see like how things are going. But no, I have a check-in this week with my agent now based on her advice. You just really got to like take control of what you actually want. Because in the acting game, especially, like you got to be self-motivated. It's not like some kind of 9-to-5 job, which you can just arrive there and do your thing and then leave. You have to continually do it continually. So have not made it yet, but at least I have some new insights now.
Yeah, I do have a question that I was thinking about this recently. Is like I know you're going for more like auditions and stuff like that, but like, are you open to doing like modeling gigs? Have you done many modeling gigs, or is that even something you brought up with your agent to potentially get for you?
I've never even thought about that.
Really? Oh, because I've like I was literally just thinking is like what's another is like modeling. Why hasn't Lucas done maybe more model, like if you get like modeling gigs, maybe that's another way of like getting your face out there.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here first, folks. Josh thinks I can potentially do some modeling. I'll consider that. I mean, I've never even thought about it, but
oh, interesting.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to put that idea in your head.
Thank you. Now I gotta look good. It's hot boy summer right now, man. Gotta train it up.
It's a hot vaccine summer.
Man.
Vaccine's hot.
Speaking of, actually, no, there's no segue into this, but I really did want to introduce our next guest that we have here. Are you ready, Josh?
I am. Hit me.
Okay. All right. So I remember seeing our next guest back in my church days. I saw him playing the violin and was blown away by his smoothness and tone. I'm not sure if tone is the right word when playing the violin, but it was crisp. It was really, really smooth. A few years wore on, and then I saw him in the liner notes of one of my favorite indie bands, In Medias Res. Furthermore, I saw them play live with him, and man, his musicianship is second to none, and it added to the group's dynamic. And I just never really saw like rock music combined with like violin and stringed instruments all together in one. So he was one of the first persons who introduced me to that type of sound and collaboration. We've actually collaborated before, him and I, when he helped me record one of my own tracks, and his coaching and prowess around the recording equipment made me feel right at home. Our next guest scored for numerous TV shows like A Homecoming for the Holidays and the feature film My Little Pony, the movie. He's recorded with many groups and bands, and his most recent collaboration is on Sam Raimi's 50 States of Fright. Please give it up for the amazing Caleb Chan.
Hey.
What up? Hey, guys.
Woo! What's up?
Hey, good to see you guys.
Awesome, man. As we start off with every episode, though, Caleb, have you made it yet?
Yes. So the big question, I guess, it was nice to hear your answers because I'm going to piggyback on some of that stuff. But I tend to split this up a little bit.
Yeah.
I think for practical reasons, probably yes. I mean, I'm making a living making music, and I'm able to support my family. And you know, what more can I ask for besides that? And so I think on that level, probably, yeah, I'm good. You know, I've always felt that, you know, if I can do that, I've achieved something, or be content with that. And if that's all that it is, then I'm good with that too. So yeah, on that level, sure, I think I've made something. Maybe on the artistic level, the creative level, maybe I've made a lot of stuff, but have I made it? I don't know if I've made it yet, but I've made some stuff, and some of it is good, some of it is not good. And of that variety, there's probably more of the latter than the former.
Oh.
So hopefully I keep making stuff. I think that's probably as best as I can put it. And hopefully I'll start to sway the balance towards making more decent stuff than stuff that isn't. And so, yeah, I guess in that sense, I'll be making it, and it, meaning just stuff in general, and music, and trying to be creative. But yeah, I do want to caveat a couple of things though in the intro. So that with IMR, yeah, you saw that, you probably saw that show at St. James, right? Like,
yeah, at a church.
Yeah. So my brother was on that too. So Brian was actually my inroads with that band. Brian playing cello, and so yeah, you probably hadn't seen us kind of do the violin or strings with the rock thing, but I got to credit my brother for bringing me into that too, for you know, bringing me into the fold, so to speak.
Nice.
So yeah, so we want to caveat some of that.
Sweet.
But yeah, I guess that's hope that does that satisfy? Is that decent answer? Is good enough?
I mean, like, hey, however, I think because making it is already so subjective and so personal, type of goal, a type of description for everybody, I think everybody's interpretation of it is sufficient. It is what you see it. And I think it is interesting that you said it's like there is still something like a motivation there, that it sounds like there's still that thing that you want to do artistically. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna nail in on that a little bit more. It's like, what would you say is that thing artistically that you want to take on, like a challenge?
I should have just left this answer as yes, and then just like quit it right there. I was like, end the podcast.
Oh, we wouldn't have accepted just a standard yes. Like we would have like dug deep.
Oh yeah, that wouldn't cut it. Yeah, but in terms of, I guess, artistically, I don't know. Like you guys know, it's always a balance between the work that you get, or you're you know, grateful enough to partake in, and kind of your own endeavors. I don't really know much about, you know, being a comedian or acting. I guess I'd be very poor at both. But from a musical standpoint, we're always like, these days I'm mostly a composer. I score to film and TV and picture. And on that standpoint, there's always a collaborative effort that we take with the producers, directors, or the powers that be. And to that end, you know, there's a bit of ownership of the music that's not mine. It's a collaborative effort with a lot of people. And so we can be creative, but it's always within a certain amount of bounds. And I think having that in mind, the work that I do for TV and film, I can be really proud of, but sometimes it doesn't fit into what I do. Like, say, if I was just in a room by myself and you know, up to my own devices, those things could look very different. So when I say like, have I made it yet? I probably haven't made enough of that, the stuff that, you know, I've been in the room to do on my own. It's hard to come by, you know, the time these days with production schedules, but I like to eventually see what happens. You know, it's always a dance of being able to do both. And some people can do it really well. I don't think I have the capacity to do both at the same time really well. So I think it'll be one of those things where I gotta block some time off or something like that.
Is there a group or composer that you'd love to collaborate with one day as your
I don't know. Like, Lucas, you down for some more tunes, round two? Yeah, we can. The remote thing is up and running now. Like, since we're in different cities, but who cares? But like, I work a lot with my brother now, Brian. I mentioned earlier, so we write everything together. And to that end, I think that's always been a bit of a bucket list for us both to work together really tightly. In terms of, is there people that like a bucket list type thing where I need to collaborate with someone? No, I don't think so. I think the stuff that I really want to do would I would probably see if I can bring about those things myself first, like, or at least have the concept, and then whoever might fit into that concept, kind of have people around that are better than me at fulfilling those things. Yeah. In terms of like, if I was just purely speaking artistically, but I do, like, I'm a bit of a lone wolf. I think my brother would say that too. Cool. I do sometimes like to be in my own room and just do my own thing when it comes down to it. So I don't know, collaborate with myself, I guess. I don't know. Is that how you write, Josh? Like, you write a lot of material, right? Like, is you collaborate, or you like to just kind of stick to your own?
Well, I mean, like, I definitely feel like it's there's like a 50-50 process to it. Like, you would write the jokes through your own inspiration, like what kind of ideas you come up with, like through your daily life, or something just might pop in your head. But for stand-up comedies, like, you don't really know if it's good until you really put it in front of an audience.
Right.
And because of that, whereas like musicians, like, they can just go off and like hide out in a cabin for like a month and create music just through an internal drive. But like, right, comedians, they're nothing without an audience, because they don't know if what they think is funny is actually funny. And then based on the audience's reaction, that's always a collaborative process, because the audience will tell you what is funny and what works and what doesn't work. And it's always that trial and error process. So like, there's always that you write it yourself, but then you always have to put it in front of an audience. And then it's always fun to work with other comedians, because then they'll give you tags or additional lines here and there. They might make suggestions on what could be a good change in like the structure of the joke. So I think for stand-up comedy, it is much more collaborative. Like, you're forced to be more collaborative, right, than it is with music. I feel like music is very almost like a more pure inspirationally driven type of endeavor.
Right, like, we have the option of not giving a shit if we wanted to, right?
Yeah,
like, that's what you're saying. Yeah, right. That's true. Yeah, I guess if it's purely in a cabin type situation, yeah, I would agree with that. But you'd be fired pretty quick if you walked into a studio and or hired to work on a show and you had that same attitude. I'm sure it wouldn't be very long until they find somebody else who's more collaborative.
That is interesting, because like scoring is definitely a more like niche type of market or profession for musicians, because like musicians, that if they want to just be their own act, they can do that whole thing, like hide out for a little bit and just create the music themselves. But you're right, the collaborative process needs to be there, because you're scoring a film that has a whole bunch of different writers, performances, directors. Everybody has like a different take to it. How would you say, like, as a composer, as somebody who has to score a film, like, how do you manage all those different types of like influences or themes into something that might, make what's on the screen pop even more?
I guess it changes from project to project depending on the personnel and the type of collaboration that you might receive. I don't have like a theory of everything type, like E = MC² type situation where it fits every situation. I think it's a little bit more specific than that. But general practice is that, like, if you can get thematic stuff going, that's always good for a film. Like, it, or maybe not always, like very, very often, more often than not, it's a strength for something to have some sort of material that you can spin off of, that creates a narrative around it. So that's kind of, like, you're right, that's often the place that we would start. And but before that, it's the situation where you kind of read the room. You kind of feel out who kind of holds the vision, and you try to adhere to that as best as we can off the bat. I mean, sometimes we don't have a lot of time, and sometimes walk into a situation where there's already a very big expectation of what they want from the composer, and so in those cases, it's really you just doing the job. You're really just doing what the expectations are, and they're looking to you to fill that. But in other situations where it could be a little bit more like, hey, we don't really know what we want, like, so help us think of something. And in those cases, there's a bit more weight to pull on our end. But I think by and large, most people have an idea of what they want already. Very few people have just a blank slate. So kind of feeling out who in that room kind of has that cohesive thought and how we can fit into that becomes kind of the game.
Yeah.
But it's not always easy. It's harder. I mean, there's politics involved.
Yeah.
There's a bit of creative struggles that are beyond our pay grade, that happens at a conceptual level that we don't have, we're not privy to sometimes.
Yeah.
But we try to feel that out, like you guys, it's hard to say, you can't always pinpoint it, but when it's there, it could be magical, for lack of a better word.
Yeah. Is there like a specific do you have like a preference then? Do you want to work in a project where like there is much more definitive a theme or a definitive ask for you as a composer, or do you feel more engaged in a project where it's like we want your input in how we build the end art piece?
Yeah, it depends too. Like, it depends on, I think with film or TV in general, it kind of comes down to the story, really. And sometimes you'll get a really great story with no musical direction. Those are fun because at least you have a great story to work with. But a lot of what's out there, it's really crappy stories, but with a very clear direction of what they want from you. So you end up just doing it, and obviously that isn't the best, but for practical reasons, it's really great that stuff is out there, because that's the stuff that a lot of us are able to support our families with, just like the barrage of content, but they all kind of fit within the same expectations, and you kind of can feel those out and hammer it. So I don't look down on those at all. As an artistic preference, probably less of those would be better. More the ones where you get a chance to kind of spin things from the start. Like those are obviously more creatively rewarding. But it's also, the onus is kind of on you, right? Like if you don't make something good, then and then you kind of come away with feeling that you might have missed the mark on the project, or maybe not done as good as you could have, which is always a possibility. That's always.
I did want to ask you about that point, because a big portion of your work is not only, of course, creating music, but also pitching ideas and pitching to directors and producers what your vision is for the score and everything like that. Are there any techniques that you have in terms of pitching and showing your ideas so that it's a bit more accepting to the people that you're working with?
Like salesman type?
Art
salesman type? I don't know. I don't think, in fact, I don't know if that's a forte of mine even. I tend to, I really try and let my music come first. If people receive it, then there must be something to it. And I think like both Brian and I, as we embark on all these projects, we do less talking and more showing, because it tends to work out a little better than we might even expect sometimes. And so the music, I hope, precedes us in that way. If it comes down to really like nitty-gritty type of note situations where you present something and they're giving back notes, now you can have a chance to sell it, because you've already written something. They might call back and be like, hey, can we change something here and there? If you don't think it makes sense, then we can present a case. But we always like hook on the cases to the characters or the emotion behind a reason, because people don't really, like, directors and producers, not all of them have musical language. And so you kind of need to learn what kind of language they're speaking. Maybe it's metaphorical, maybe it's very practical. Maybe they're they have a great ear for how the levels of music and dialogue come together, but they don't have a way of expressing it. So, but more often than not, it comes down to an emotional level of things. And that's kind of what is more effective when you're talking to people at that emotional level in terms of the story, and then kind of bring the music in there after the fact. Does it enhance or does it take away? Are we giving it more nuance? Are we kind of amplifying things that are already there? So when we talk about it from that standpoint and then bring the music in, it usually a little bit more successful that way.
Awesome.
Ultimately, it's like, it's their baby for a lot of these things. So
yeah,
they just want you to know that you understand what's in their head. And once you get that level down, there's a lot of forgiveness and there's a lot of solutions to a scene. You know, nobody will score the same thing, or no two composers will score the same scene the same way. Right. So, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just the understanding. If that's established, there can be a lot of leeway.
Yeah. In that case, then, do you have to read the script first before you formulate some ideas of how you want the OST to sound?
Not always, and sometimes we don't get the luxury of scripts.
Oh wow!
Well, there's no time for instance, like if it's a TV series, I'd be hard pressed to know that composers are able to even come back scripts, because it's so quick from like shoot to like scripts to shoot to edit. That they all might just like collide together, and then pretty soon after that they're in post, and that's when we come in. And usually we don't really like to score too much until we've got something that's locked, so that the music that we're doing it to the picture is more or less in its final form. So yeah, we don't get the luxury of scripts all the time. Once in a while they'll come by and we'll read it through before we see a picture. But in a series situation, like once you get the first few episodes in, like you kind of know the stylistic sensibilities, right? Like it's kind of on you to figure that out. They shouldn't need to keep giving you scripts. It's like, come on, you've like scored 5 of these. Like it's pretty obvious like where things are going. And if anything after that, it's just discussions. If things are unclear, plotting sessions. That's what those are for.
Nice. I hear you. Of course, we talk about like the more serious things and everything like that. Do you have any musical guilty pleasures, Caleb?
Oh, guilty pleasures?
Yeah.
I like to play a lot of things poorly. Like I think that happens to be like, okay, so you brought up violin before, and in my heart, hearing you say that, I feel a bit shameful because I'm not a great violin player anymore. I would not market myself as that. I'm much more like behind the desk now, kind of behind the scenes composing. And I much more rather give the things that are right to a more legitimate violinist who can pull things off more. I think my strengths are more like in my mind rather than like through my fingers. So that's why like I love picking up instruments and just getting to like bottom like baseline with them, because I don't have the time anymore to excel at one thing. Some people practice like 6 hours a day. So I can't compete with that, and they deserve to be much better. So I ended up being just like shitty at a lot of things, and I think that's awesome for me. Works great for me.
Yeah.
And I'd like to live in that space. So that's, I guess, guilty pleasure. Maybe that's it.
I do watch your Instagram stories a lot, man, and like the way that you do play everything from the xylophone to, of course, the ukulele to guitar to the bass. It's just a mishmash that sounds incredible all put together. So it doesn't sound shitty to me at all.
Yeah, it's like I'm really good at playing within my means. So if you take one of those things and solo them, it sounds, it's not there. Yeah, right. I would never do that. It's always has to work together. That's the thing.
Nice.
Lucas, last time we spoke, you weren't even acting yet. So sorry, I wanted to catch up with you a little bit because we go way back, but we lost touch a little bit over the years. And like the last time we really talked, like you weren't really acting yet at that point, right?
Yeah, no, it was, dude, I'm actually writing a screenplay about it right now. entitled "How to Deal with Disappointment." That's my screenplay right now.
You're gonna cast yourself. Like embodying.
Yeah. It's like a Aziz Ansari, Master of None kind of thing. But no, it's just constant. This city, Toronto was an interesting place, as I'm sure you know. But it's just constant companies going in and out, and companies falling under. And then I was like, the volatility of this business is just way too crazy. So might as well just do something for me. And I've always wanted to be working in front of the camera. So screw it, man. Might as well just do it instead of playing it safe,
Right. Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like throwing a Hail Mary for yourself. You're gonna catch your own Hail Mary. That's how insane that is.
I know. And we do talk about this in this podcast too, about the industry that we're in and how it is incredibly volatile. Josh, of course, we know your story too, but I also did want to ask you too, Caleb. We don't work in a classic 9-to-5 job with securities in life and everything and stability. How have you managed to deal with the volatility of your business?
So the pandemic, right? So that's that was a big thing for a lot of us. So I always ask, like, when questions like that come, is this for like a practical question, or is this like more of a like creative? Because for me, it's always a little bit separated. And I think I can keep myself quite content with practical answers, and sometimes but some people really need to be like creatively satiated all the time. I think I keep a distance between those two things.
Interesting.
So I guess like from a practical level, the volatility, like kind of like manage your money. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just my Asianness coming out. Like, if you manage your money though, like you can actually go a very long way with being stability. And I think like we don't really talk about that as creative people, because usually we don't aren't equipped with those tools, or a business mind. Like, I think a lot of that we kind of just have to learn on the fly. But I think like I've earned very little. I've earned a lot more, and I've come right back down. But through it all, like it hasn't felt that. I think maybe I was fortunate enough to always have some semblance of work. But like, I think financially, at least, I think a good idea of how volatile the industry really is, and setting yourself up to take on those dips. I think that's like a big practical part of the puzzle, that creates a bit of mental stability. And then from there, it's like you're more mentally stable, you're more emotionally stable, and then you can kind of grind it out a little bit more without maybe having the stress of like your entire life on whether or not the next paycheck will come in. So I think learning to set those things up for yourself, and being within your means, like maybe when it's flowing, like take some away and just like keep it for when it ebbs, that's a pretty, it seems very basic, but it's surprisingly a little difficult to do, especially for maybe creative people for some reason. But yeah, if on that level, I don't know if that's like part of the question, but like I feel like that's fairly important, because it deals with like mental stress and emotional stress. At the end of the day, that's what the burden comes down to, right? I'm sure you guys know, like there's an enormous amount of pressure on, even I think probably comes from ourselves to begin with, like that inner pressure. And if we can check off a little bit of things that add to that pressure, like finances, maybe that gets us in a better headspace to tackle the rest.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. Like, I think a lot of what we've talked about on this podcast has been really trying to give a sense to the listeners what the expectation is realistically pursuing these type of careers, whether it's acting, music, comedy. Is like everybody is initially introduced to like the top earners, because that's what you're most easily exposed to, but you don't really see how those top earners, big stars, like, had to grind in the beginning to get to where they are. For like, actors, you need some kind of day job that's also kind of flexible, so you can do auditions. Same thing with like comedy as well. It's like, if you go into it thinking like that's going to be everything in the beginning, like then you're setting yourself up to be in a tough situation.
Yeah,
There's
totally.
no money in it. And like I think for composing and scoring is even less information out there in my mind, because I just can't imagine like what that initial process is. Like, how do you even get a foot in the door to something so specific that seems like it's such a small community?
Yeah, I mean, like I've been getting this question a lot too, for whatever reason. I think for a lot of us, like a musician as a general pile, when the pandemic hit and all of a sudden all that live stuff went away, people were kind of panicking, and maybe some people thought, hey, if I could write music and maybe produce it, maybe I'd jump over the pond and make a career, at least a temporary one, out of that. But it really isn't as easy as doing that. Like it's a completely different industry, unless you're really set in the indie route. Then maybe like your friend would be a filmmaker. They've heard some of your tracks or like your songs, and then it would be a natural relationship that way. Like a lot of people get really good doing that, but it's still hard. It's really hard to make a decent living. So I mean, for a lot of us, it's you kind of need to open the doors up for yourself. And once you start doing that, I think we'll realize that there are communities out there that are quite supportive. Like say in Canada, we've had the Screen Composers Guild run for a while. In Vancouver, there's the Vancouver Post Association, which kind of brings people from all areas of the post industry together, including like editors and producers and composers and colorists and all those people. And so there are networks out there, but it all kind of stems from like nobody's gonna know about you until you take the initiative to put yourself out there. And that was like I remember that being such a gross feeling. Like internally, I'm like, I hate doing this. Like I don't spend much of my time networking, and I don't think I have the personality for that either. But it is, in the beginning, it was a ton of cold calls and emails, like doing research. We went down the list of who are the industry, or who are the studios in town, and who runs those, and who would hire, and then we checked off names based on that. And we were thankful that we had people that are kind of on our side to pull us through. It's always a bit of luck involved, or a lot of luck involved, right place at the right time situations. But it does come back to work on the craft, make sure the craft is there, so that when you're putting yourself out, you never know when people might clue into needing a certain thing. Like we've had people that contact us 2 years after we've emailed them and be like, hey, remember that reel? Like we kind of want some, or like months. Like very rarely would you get something like on the dime, like immediately, right? It's not like, people don't work like that. People aren't just waiting around for you to walk through the door and be like, okay, that's our guy. Like nobody, I don't think that's ever happened in my life. More often than not, it's been like months of radio silence, and then for some reason they decide to hit you back, and then from there you go. Like, and that's kind of like, I like doing it that way, because it really puts a lot of emphasis on the craft. Like the craft needs to be there, and for me, it's like that's always been the most important thing. Like if my music sucks, like why would I hire me? Like I wouldn't hire me. It sucks. And so essentially it comes down to, making that like the pinnacle, and then backing it up by just being slightly entrepreneurial, doing yourself a service once you have something to be proud of, and then are able to put yourself out. But I don't know, man, like there are paths out there that probably I didn't take that would have been more effective for other people. That's just the one that we just ended up doing, and it kind of worked. You never know how long it's going to work for, but it sort of worked for us. So
yeah. I did want to also ask you, since you touched upon it, how has COVID and the lockdown impacted your writing?
Impacted the writing? Oh, so you're talking about like strictly on a creative level? Yeah,
on a creative level. Yeah.
The thing I write now is just sad. No, I'm actually. So when COVID hit, we were on the last leg of production for 50 States of Fright, which was the series that Sam Raimi had executive produced. And by then, all the shooting was done, so they were purely in post. So we kept that going for another month or so until until we ran dry. There's nothing, no live action. People were scrambling. And so at that point, Brian and I decided that we would make an album just in our own studios separately, and then kind of see what we write from all the turmoil that's going around the world. And we thought maybe at that time it'd be nice to do something more meditative, like longer form, no strong melodies. It was kind of more just, there's so much anxiety at that time that I think that was something that was needed. And then so we did that. We actually probably put it out in like 2-3 weeks, and just like an album that was purely instrumental and string based. And then that sort of writing would kind of set us into a tone of, like maybe it's a period of rest. And for a lot of people, like, high emotions, but if that could have helped maybe for them to find a little bit of peace or rest, that would have been just great for us.
Yeah. You're referring to Good Weather, right?
Yeah, that's the album. Yeah, and we just had we just put out another name, like Hayes, which is our Chinese middle name, or common name, common character. So Brian and I, we just used Hayes as our band. We're not a band, we're just two dudes. It's very low key. It's like, yeah, we're not we don't perform, we don't tour. It's just the two of us. And so, yeah, so from a creative level, that's what it did right off the bat. But, soon afterwards, like probably half a year after that, the hallmarks picked up. So we're back into that mode where, we're doing something that's very, very much within a very tight boundaries of their brand. And so creatively, we just adhere to that. And then we picked up some animation series as well, which are the ones that we're working on, because people figured, you can move computers back home. You don't need like a whole crew of people. So animation's actually been really strong. Vancouver being a pretty good hub for that in Canada, in Toronto as well, I guess.
Yeah.
So we've been working on cartoons for a few months now. So yeah, we can't let pandemic affect the way that cartoon music goes. People still need, uppity up, cartoon music. But we try to, we try to be serious about it too. Like we take it very seriously, the animations, and
nice.
And so yeah, so writing wise, it doesn't sound like it's been affected by pandemic, and we just do what it needs, essentially. Yeah. What about you?
Nice.
What have you guys been doing? Like, since you guys started this podcast in pandemic, right? Or was this something before?
You want to take this, Josh?
Well, I mean, like we started talking about this like the fall before the pandemic hit, and we were like going through kind of like the conception and like renting out the equipment and stuff in like January.
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted to give it a try for like a few episodes. And then, just to make sure we're committed into it, and that we have an idea going forward. So we did like 5 episodes where we were set up at Lucas's place, where it looked like we were together and we were going to, do this kind of, banter podcast back and forth. And then the pandemic hit like right when we were just 5-6 episodes in. And then we had to switch to this format where it's just Zoom calls and like Zoom podcasts essentially. And in that sense, it's like suddenly our idea of what the podcast was just changed dramatically, and we had to adapt to it. But at the same time, I also think like it's interesting that I don't think we would have been able to interview as many guests or like be able to, have as many conversations, have such a variety of guests as well. Like managed to like connect with some people that I knew in my past. There's like, we met a bunch of kind of LA rappers through like while I was a friend I made on exchange who are in Los Angeles, but it's like without this pandemic situation and suddenly this new medium, this new format being just accepted by everybody, like everybody creative is like, okay, yeah, now Zoom is a thing now for us. Everybody's doing interviews on Zoom. So this doesn't feel like it's a weird type of addition to like different podcasts. So it's like, for some reason, it kind of helped us be able to expand our podcasts and have so many more guests than we thought before. Because I think before we just thought it's like, we got to somehow create a in studio atmosphere and like find
like version of
yeah and like find people to come to Lucas's place, and then that's how we would do that podcast. Essentially, it's like now a lot more versatile and like efficient to just have everybody go do these Zoom chats, Zoom things, and they just get more guests that way. So like we've adapted to it, and like I think this podcast is just a baby that was conceived essentially out of the pandemic.
That's awesome. I mean, so if you were to answer as if you were the podcast itself, like has the podcast made it? Like, is this the final form?
I think when we started off, I made some goals where it was like in the first episode, we were like, what would we like in a year or so? And I think in a year I was like 500 subscribers on YouTube. This was like no real conception of how hard it was. And then we realized pretty quickly, it's pretty damn hard to do that and generate something out of nothing. So then I think once we got down to it at the end of our first series, where we did like 52 episodes and interviewed like 39, almost 40 people, I think that it was when we were like, wow, we managed to do this week in and week out and managed to interview this many people for a whole year, essentially. And I think that in and of itself was already an accomplishment. I think like that it exceeded what we thought maybe the podcast could be.
Yeah, and if anything, it's just like you get to talk to people and see what's up with people, and that's like more than most of us can say. Like, I don't talk to anybody; I just talk to clients, and it's pretty much solitary here. So that's pretty neat that what you guys have built. I do appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, it's been fun, and to Josh's point too, I just can't imagine like 3 people around my dining room table, because that's already too many people in a pandemic, but also even without a pandemic, it's way too tight. So really grateful for Zoom.
Big table. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I did want to ask you just this last question here. I'm listening to your tracks and everything like that you have on your website, and also the other things that you've scored. I hear like, of course, John Williams in there. I also hear like hints of like Johnny Greenwood, like just really eclectic things that you have that I'm sure you've taken influence from. What were some of your earliest influences, and how have you carried them to your work in present day?
Earliest influences.
Yeah.
Like when I was a baby. Like
like day one kind of stuff.
Yeah, the stuff that my parents played then, I guess. It'd be like it'd probably be a ton of classical music. That's like my whole life for like 20 years. And then it'd be like hymns, maybe. Although I can't see that being really a part of my my professional output. Like I can't work a hymn into the cartoons that I'm doing. Like not that I've really tried, but I don't think it just really works that way. But maybe that created a sense of choral writing or texture, maybe that is ingrained somewhere. We listen to some Chinese folk music, which is still very much part of me, and actually like a part of me that I want to work on a little bit and understand a little bit more. So that's a part where I haven't made it yet. Like I haven't really truly gotten that sense ingrained where I'd like it to be. But those are kind of like the earliest stuff. And then, as you know, like in high school, we ended up doing bands and indie music, like discovering, like you said, Johnny Greenwood, like Radiohead, in grade 9, I think. And then Christopher, you guys know Christopher O'Reilly? He's like a piano player, classical piano player, but then he covered a whole bunch of Radiohead tunes.
Oh, cool.
And that was like the first time I think listening to that, we're like, wow, worlds are like colliding here. Like there's like really beautiful, almost like Debussy-esque covers of Radiohead. And that was kind of the impetus for me, like, things can really be a part of each other and still feel relatively authentic. And then like Disney movies, that's like so much part of every one of our childhood.
Yeah.
And John Williams, I'm sure, like continues to be a huge, like Harry Potter and all those movies that we ended up watching when we could understand movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's and hip hop eventually made its way in.
Nice.
I do like making the odd beat here and there, but like as a film composer, you kind of like I think my strength is still being everywhere, like the way I'm at with instruments. I think sensibility wise, I can pivot, or I can kind of absorb a lot of things and make that part of my identity. I'm sure there's something core in there, but the expression of that can be in like very many different genres and styles, and that used to bother me, but it doesn't anymore. Like I've kind of understand that myself. But
it sounds like there's like a lot of different influences, and from early on you gravitated towards the musicality and like probably pursuing something like that. Like what was one of the main things then that like really pushed you into selecting to pursue composing specifically, like as a musician, like wanting to maybe like perform or like be part of a band, but it's like composition, and like not only that, like film composition, TV composition. Like what was it about that artistic form that captured your drive and like motivation?
Yeah, I think it's like a large part of it was realizing that there are so many people out there that are like so good at playing music, and maybe I'm just not one of them, or don't have the exact, like Lucas, I know you probably see this different way too, because you probably look at me and thought I was good at some point, which I probably was. I was probably pretty decent, but in my mind, I always kind of seen other people in that same light and thought that they were amazing. And at the professional level, I think if I were to be realistic about myself, I didn't kind of compare, or, like there are guys that are just people that are just amazing. And it continues to boggle my mind how many there are in this world. Right. And just so many of them, unfortunately, don't get to see the light of day because they end up burning out, or they choose something else. But for me, I think I was lucky to have a bit of self-awareness that maybe I better seek out something else and leave it to the real pros to play the music. And so that's why I stepped away from performance a little bit. And then from there, it's like it's all about self-expression, I think, as an artist, right? And for me, it's like I just found it, I think, writing music. So I went off and wrote music and did my schooling out in Toronto too, with my postgraduate degrees, and then came back here in Vancouver. And the film thing really just like, it was happenstance. It really just fell in my lap. And the more that I think about it, it's like, wow, that was a lucky stroke of luck that I kind of fell into this industry. And then, working for other composers and just like absorbing the art, the craft. And then eventually I just made my own way, like the way that I described. But yeah, I think it suits me probably the best because it's so weird. Like it's so diverse. Like you could be doing, like, I think right before we did the Sam Raimi thing, which is like a horror show. Like we did like a preschool series before then. So we just went from that to like full blown horror, and it doesn't make any sense like from a musician point of view. Right. But that's kind of like, I think my career's kind of been like that. We just leapfrog here and there, and we happen to be pretty decent at doing exactly that, and it prevents us from being pigeonholed, right? So it's like it's like senseless, but it's awesome. Pretty grateful for that part.
Keeps you on your toes, man, because you're jumping from like animation toddlers to like deep horror stuff, man.
Yeah. So it's like for a month, my son could come and like hang out with me when I worked. And then like right after that show, I'm like, you can't be in here anymore. Like it's gonna be like, so you gotta be out of there. So I ended up working later and later just to avoid him like strolling in when like people are getting slashed up.
Oh my God, that's so cute.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, I like, we enjoy that process. We enjoy being anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I think from here, let's do word association from here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right.
Do I give you guys some too, or is this just purely on me?
Ooh, if you want to give us some words and throw it back to us, that might be like pretty fun at the end. Go with some off the top of your head. I mean, like Lucas and I have like a different approach to this 10-word word association game that we play with all of our guests as kind of like a palate cleanser at the end of the podcast. Whereas like I have 10 words that I always say throughout the series. And Lucas always likes to come up with different words with more curated towards the guest. So like we have a different approach towards it. But if you're up for like just throwing words to us at the end, like, hey, like we're game for that as well.
Let's see. I'm not a great improviser, but I'll see if I come up with something cool.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like I can start with my 10 words. And then like basically the game is we'll have our words. After each word, clear your head, like empty it, and then say the first word or like idea or like phrase or like something that inspires you out of each of our words, and then we just go from there.
All right. Why do I feel a bit nervous?
Yeah, because you don't know, because everybody's nervous because if they don't know what they're about to say, that there's always a little jittery element to it that just keeps you focused.
Yeah, that's why like everything I do, I like pre-write. That's why I'm a composer for exactly the pre.
So you gotta compose on the spot right now. Okay, great. All right, so I'll start off. We're gonna empty our minds. Ready for the first word is childhood.
Music.
Banana.
My daughter, she just had a banana today.
Sun.
My son.
Solitude.
Ooh, solitude. I would say peace.
Goal.
Like GOAL.
Yeah.
Goal. Soccer.
River.
Also music.
Circle.
Philosophy.
Kumquat.
Oh, delicious. That I can't be the same. I can't have been the first person to say that. I'm sure other people have said that, right?
I think you are the first person because most people have no idea what a kumquat is. Like we've always gotten is like it's either is like I don't know what a kumquat is, or is like that sounds dirty. But it's like I think you're the first one who's like actually given a description of like your relationship with kumquats.
Oh, that goes deep too. That goes back to childhood. I'm gonna circle this all together.
Nice. Next word. Winning.
Kobe.
And last word, finished.
Jesus.
Oh, bringing it back to Jesus. Always nice there. Great. So that's the first 10 words from me, Lucas.
All right. You feel good, Caleb?
I feel good. I'm just thinking about kumquats now. Like I kind of want a few. You can't eat one. Like I've never heard of anybody that's eaten just one kumquat. You gotta have like 5. I think that's a baseline of having kumquats.
Dude, that's like a longan, man. You can't just eat one.
Yeah, you can't just eat one. Yeah.
She's silly.
All right. I'm good to go.
Sweet. Okay. First word of 10. Brother.
Brother? Brian.
Upbringing.
Grateful.
Family.
Chan.
Collaborate.
Collaborate. I want to say, I think I had 2 things that's like I had easy and hard at the same time. I don't know which one to say. I'm going to say them both.
Okay. Interesting. Easy and hard. Okay. Because it's dichotomous.
I had them both kind of just like, I was like, oh, shoot, which one came first? I was trying to assess, but I couldn't. So I was going to throw them both out there. I think they're both valid.
Nice. Score.
This one's also both came at the same time because I thought about music, but then I also thought about basketball.
Nice.
Because I just lost a fantasy season, so I'm thinking about that a lot recently. But okay.
Theory.
Theory, music,
Church.
people,
Nice. Solo.
Han,
Neoclassical.
neoclassical, and this one is I can't find that exact category when I'm trying to distribute our album on Spotify. So frustration with that one because I don't know where that category went when we're trying to distribute it. But yeah.
And the last word, Caleb.
Oh, that's just me. Nothing else to say about me.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, those are good words. I think I'd probably double down on music one too many times.
Hey, I mean, music is your life. You gotta use it.
Well, I mean, it's a part of my life. I wouldn't say it's my whole life. So that's the thing. That's the distance part that helps me stay afloat.
Nice.
And
Balance off of because if you get because like if you're an artist and you get too deep into it and like you just like not let everything else go off to the side, then like you can get into a pretty tough situation there.
Yeah, I mean, I married not a musician, and she reminds me, very practically that, maybe some distance is a good thing sometimes, and I really believe that now. Let me throw. I just got 2 words for you guys. See what
All
you
right.
guys.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, yellow.
Ooh, this one. Oh, I'll take it first.
Yeah.
Definitely the Mandarin version cover of Yellow from Crazy Rich Asians.
Like the Coldplay song, the Mandarin version of that.
Yeah, but the Mandarin version, because that I love. I forgot it was definitely. I you know what? It's kind of shameful that I didn't commit that to memory, but I can't remember exactly. I'm pretty sure if I looked it up, but like I definitely not only do I like thought that was such a beautiful rendition, but it's like it was so unique because like I could understand the some of the terms or enough of the terms, whereas like I could see the lyrical comparisons with the original song, but then also just being able to hear something that's so ingrained in like Western pop culture and Coldplay and like and then to hear that coming out in Mandarin was such a unique thing, and not only that, it was a perfect like ending song to an entire film that I didn't even realize it until like a couple songs in, that the whole thing is in Mandarin. Like all the score, all the music of it is all Mandarin. There isn't a single word of English really in the entire movie for the score. So when you say Yellow, is like, I think that's the first thing I thought I would always revert back to.
That's interesting. That's cool.
I don't want to be too egocentric, but I thought of myself as being yellow.
Hey, we're all yellow here. We're all yellow here, my friend. This is a safe yellow circle.
Yeah.
And as you talk, like literally zoom,
zoom
around your face.
Yeah, Zoom's being a little racist right now, just letting us know what we are, who we are.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. I got another one. Water.
Yo. Again, I'm not sure if you brought this up just because we're chatting right now, but that's the track that you and I recorded.
Is that the name?
That's the name.
Oh man. Yeah, well, I don't remember all the names all the time, but that's the name, huh? I forgot.
Yeah, that's uncanny, Caleb. Did that just come to your head?
Well, I'm also drinking water, so I think that probably everything just aligned at that moment.
Wow. Whoa. Do you feel that? Did you feel that? Yeah, artistic circle closing there. A lot of circles we're talking about passing in the present.
Vibrating at the right frequency. That's what we're doing.
Man, yeah.
What'd you think of, Josh?
For me, I don't know why. I guess is like I'm really on this whole like gung-ho Asian representation thing going on, but like when you said water, like a lot of the quotes I've been thinking about lately is like Bruce Lee's "Be Like Water,"
Oh yeah.
and like I saw the documentary that came out, like that's named "Be Like Water," like "Be Water" or something like that, and it's like I never learned as much about Bruce Lee until like really looking into that documentary and seeing his life story a bit more. That I was like, whoa, this man, the potential that this man could have brought to the Asian community in like Western society, it would have been groundbreaking. It would have changed all of our lives, I think, if he kept going and he kept becoming like a Hollywood superstar. Like all of our stereotypes of what like not only like Asian men would be different, completely different, I think.
God, yeah. What was he, like 36 when he passed? Or something like, was he in his 30s? I don't think he even made it to his 40s.
I can't remember. He was definitely not an old dude. He was like pretty, I feel like he was right on the cusp of like really entering like another level.
Yeah.
I feel like, because that's what it was. It's like he died right when Enter the Dragon was gonna come out. And then, like when Enter the Dragon got released, he already was like he already passed away. So it was like, yeah, it's like if he kept going or something like that, like then it would have. It was like Enter the Dragon, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember the exact age he was, but I feel like it's under 40, like for sure.
Yeah. Definitely under 40. Definitely under 40.
Yeah, like that's interesting. That goes through like a whole metaphorical concept of approaching art too, and life in general. I don't know if you guys have that too, like, because I think as a creative, it's like having this singular type of metaphor that you kind of embody and spin out creatively. That's pretty amazing to kind of hold that together. And I don't know how you would even conceptualize that from like an acting or like comedy standpoint.
Yeah. Well, it is more about the fluidity in terms of acting that, you know, is related in water, and just the many roles that you have to take on and how malleable you really can be.
Sure.
Yeah. And I just saw Bruce Lee did pass away at 33.
33. Oh man, that's our age, huh?
Yeah, I'm 33 now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Caleb, do you have anything to plug? And first off, thank you so much for doing this podcast.
Absolutely.
For sure, it's super fun. I don't, like I said, I'm not a big fan of plugging myself. I know the sound of the pause, but I guess like we're working on some stuff right now, more in the animation world. That'll be out in Netflix. They don't tell me anything, so if I say 2021, I could be wrong. It could be 2022. But I think originally some of it was going to start airing in 2021. Can't believe we're in May of this year already.
I know.
Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, I like Ryan and I, like with the Haze thing, that the project that we had started during pandemic. What we did was we set up a Bandcamp, as anybody would, and then all proceeds from that went to kind of helping COVID efforts back last year, and we're hoping to still release that album for streaming platforms. It's been like over a year now, and we've just been so busy and couldn't find that neoclassical category anywhere. So we've literally just been stuck on that, and kind of haven't given it too much thought. But that's something that I think I'd be more proud of on an artistic level. That kind of is separated from the scoring work that I do. Yeah, that's up on Bandcamp, and you can still pay what you can, and maybe, I don't even keep track now. Maybe we'll continue to donate that money to whatever is needed. But yeah, that's kind of the journeys that I've been on. Keeps me really busy. In fact, almost too busy. But I'm really grateful for those.
Nice.
You and congrats to you, Josh, on your special coming up. That's pretty massive.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's
well, it's I wouldn't say it's definitely a special set. I wouldn't say it's like a full special, like a 50-minute something. I definitely didn't have enough material for that, but it's like a nice 6-minute special set that I it's out on YouTube right now, and like definitely, Caleb, like check it out. I am really interested in listening more about like your ambient music album, because as you were talking about it, I was like thinking, it's like, wait a second, soothing music. I have a podcast that is called Sleep with Josh, where it's just me reading, you know, like really boring, mundane stuff like the dictionary and laws and stuff like that. So like I have that. I've got a bunch of episodes on there, but I've been only using one track for like the kind of the background music. And now that you mentioned, like you've got a whole album of different ambient music out there, it's like, oh, interesting. Maybe I'll take a look at that and see if that might make sense to put in my podcast.
Well, hey, but you know, if the goal is to sleep with Josh, the one track thing, like the repetition of that could be very powerful too. You know, you just loop the same track. Like I could fall into a deep trance just doing that.
Yeah.
It's something very ritualistic about, you know, having the same thing over and over again.
For sure. And as like, if anything, I could turn into like different series, you know, like series 1 is like one track, and then maybe series 2 is like a different track and stuff like that. But it is interesting, like to hear like that kind of, because I remember when I was searching for a track, for a good instrumental track, like I kept having a problem trying to find one that matched what I wanted. And it's like, maybe yours will give me some options in the future.
All right, man. Yeah, check it out. I mean, I test drove that album while putting myself to sleep, so I think it sort of worked.
Nice.
Not that I have any sleeping issues. I think I sleep too easily. I think that might be a problem. Yeah, it seems to have worked.
Nice.
What are your handles, Caleb? How can people find you?
Handle social media. I'm not super active. I'm mostly there to like other people's things. But you can hit me, I guess, on Instagram, Caleb Chan Music, like the boringest, most obvious handle, but it works.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm on there, and I don't even know. I'm kind of on Twitter. But forget about Twitter. I'm not on Twitter. Like,
nice.
You know, I have Twitter, but I'm not on it. You know, that's just Instagram's probably the best place to get me.
You know, Caleb Chan Music gets right to the point. Josh is Josh Yang Comedy, so it kind of works.
It's all about those search tags. That's what it's up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I guess I don't have like an amount, like a crazy amount of followers, so maybe it doesn't work. Maybe people are searching something else. Caleb Chan, they wouldn't be searching anything else. They wouldn't. But anyway, that you can get me up on those things. I'll try to keep up to date. But
cool.
Don't post it often now. But yeah, appreciate you guys having me on. It's fun being here.
It's awesome. Josh, I think I already gave it out for you, but where can people find you?
Sure. It's Josh at Josh Yang Comedy across everything. And like, as I mentioned, we got the Sleep with Josh podcast that's out there. So go check it out. I got to do way more episodes. I've been really bad. I've only done like one new episode each month for the last couple months. So I got to really I'm going to put out an Asian Heritage Month episode where I read, the Mandarin, the classical text is like Sanzijing, that classical text. It's a whole thing. I'm going to read that in Mandarin, and I'm going to read the English translation. So it'll be the first time I actually do a Sleep with Josh episode in Mandarin. So I think that might be an interesting addition. It's like also to pay homage to Chloe Zhao for like straight up being a badass and like quoting the Sanzijing in her acceptance speech. I thought that was badass.
Right. Or you could read from Art of War if you've got that.
That's also, I took a look at that as well. And it's like, there's so much, that's a pretty thick book in terms of like the amount of characters that I think about it. That'll definitely have to be an ongoing thing. But I think the 3-character poem or text classic, I can do in one episode. But yeah, it's check that out in the future hopefully it's out by the time we release this. But yeah, check that out with the Sleep with Josh podcast. And hey, Lucas, what are your handles?
Everyone can find me across social media at Lucas John Ing. And if you like and see what you hear, follow us at HWMIY podcast on Instagram. And if you like what you want to see, you can also find us on YouTube. So wherever you listen to your podcast, we are there. But if you want the good video content, we are also on YouTube. Give it up for Caleb one more time. Thank you so much, brother.
Thank you.
I was going to point to like your subscribe button, but I don't know which way it's going to be. You guys have an editor that puts one of those things up for you?
I mean, I kind of put it like either either left or right. Either one you choose is like once we do our, we'll say goodbye and just point in one direction. I'll put it there.
Yeah. All right.
This way? Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. See you later.
All right. Ciao.